Hello everyone and welcome to this audio podcast. This audio podcast is part of Calyces Chronicle series. This audio podcast is part of MaelZtorm Cortex. This audio podcast is part of a labanostics analysis. And this audio podcast is part of a Storm Labostics production. This audio podcast will have an overview in around the design around this works from this works some peer review works from 2012. So an initial sort of PubMed database search was carried out, whereby main terminologies such as coping, young people, and kidney disease were inserted into in, were inserted were inserted into the database, and three issues were quite rapidly recognized or quite rapidly recognized. Number one, there were only two papers. There were only two peer review papers. There were only two peer review papers or publications that looked at coping in young people with CKD before 1978. Number two, the literature surrounding coping in young people with CKD after 1978 had is insubstantial. And three, the young CKD population is a small one. The following specific PubMed database searches were also carried, and these are in the peer review works are highlighted, which are highlighted in applicable sort of tables which outline the search strategies. So there in the PubMed search database search, there was a basic search. Number one, there was a basic search. Number two, there was an advanced search, and number three, there was a refined search. The basis for conducting three search types, three search types, was to identify the most specific literature surrounding the investigation. And a second table also highlights the number of peer review works established or relating or regarding to coping, renal and challenges under the search strategy. A second database a second database was used, and where the first database was a PubMed database. The second database was an EBSCO host database. A range of databases using EBSCO host engine over a 34-year duration was utilized to over a 34 year duration was utilized to carry out the search, and databases accessed using EBSCO hosts included Signal Plus and full text with full text review, psychology and behavioral sciences collection, site info, health source, nursing academic, EDT, international bibliography of social sciences, and a third table in the peer review works presents the sort of main terminologies. The main terminologies arrangement into three distinct categories. Number one, young people and coping. Number two, young people and renal. Number three, young people and challenges. And searching also included smart texting searching. Smart texting option. Smart texting was utilized to replace and/or method or modality method as part of the EBSCO host database search engine. And the smart texting also allowed as much sort of text to be entered for a search. A basic coding process was utilized to ensure the terminologies related to those categories outlined in addition, related closely to those categories outlined. And in addition, options were selected for full text peer-reviewed journals, periodicals, and looking at works in around children from children or young people between the ages 6 to 12 years, and then adolescents between 13 and 18 years, and whether there was an whether abstracts around the works was available in the English language, and and where the population group was around human-based investigations, Um, uh, just a quick overview on in around the different sort of tables in the peer review works. So table table one. Table one initially had the grouping of different terminologies as part of the literature review. There was the three main three different categories: coping, renal, and challenges. So under the coping terminologies, there were terminologies, for example, coping, well-being, quality of life, resilience, trauma, adapting, accepting, adversity, and attitude. Under renal, there was renal failure, stage 5, chronic, kidney disease, pediatric, nephrology, renal replacement therapy, transplantation, peritoneal dialysis, hemodialysis, surgery, and healthcare. And under the challenges category, there were three main terminologies, physiological, psychological, and psychosocial. In around the second table in the peer review works, it was the 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 number of papers or publications identified according to PubMed database, PubMed central database, and Medline searches, and where, for example, so in a basic search, for example, had a combination of words under the coping category, under the coping category, and also terminologies under the renal category, and terminologies under the challenges category, and a combination of terminologies were used. So, for example, coping, a terminology under the coping category, renal category, and challenges category would be, for example, coping, coping, renal failure, and physiological. And let's say, for example, and and then after implementing the basic search, the number of peer review publications have been identified. So under coping, looking at coping, specifically peer review publications around coping, there are 48 peer review publications under coping between 1976 to 2012. Under renal, under the renal category, there were 24 peer review publications between 1989 and 2012. And in under the challenges category, there were between 1975 and 2012, there were 291 peer review publications. Under the advanced search, there was under advanced search, under the coping category, for example, there was an inserting all of the words, all of the words of various words, under three the categories, under the categories, um, um, and then selecting the title of the abstract, and also and or search option, and and then the same under and the same under the categories as part of for example, the renal category, and under the challenges category. So in the advanced search, in the advanced search, there were 28 peer-reviewed papers identified between 1976 and 2012. There were 24 papers identified. There were 24 papers identified in between 1989 and 2012, and in the advanced search, revealed the advanced search had revealed 388 peer-reviewed publications between 1975 and 2012. In the refined search, there was the refined search had implemented the age group, so child or children in between 6 to 12 years of age, and then adolescents between 13 and 18 years of age, and also where additionally identifying and specifically looking at works with additional 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 sort of options in part of the as part of the English language, as part of the refined search included in those studies and investigations was more specifically in around humans, in human beings, and also in English, and also looking at title looking at works that had abstracts or works in around this category, and also looking at works in 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 the PubMed, for example, in PubMed, in PubMed Central, and or Medline searches, for example, retrieved, for example, under the coping category, retrieved 20 peer-reviewed publications between 1976 and 2012. The second category, under renal, retrieved 22 peer-reviewed publications between 1989 and 2012, and in the challenges category, they retrieved 98 abstracts between 1989 and 2012. In around in around table in around a third table in the peer review works, there is a list of the categories. So for example, young people and coping, young people and renal, young people and challenges, and then there are additional terminologies that have been implemented to identify explicit grouping of terms according to PubMed, to PubMed database, PubMed central database, and Medline search database. And a fourth table a fourth table in the peer review works highlights the themes identified from the literature review. And so, for example, theme one, the lack of coping, a definition in CKD. Theme two, coping strategies in young people with CKD. And theme three, barriers to understanding of coping in young people with CKD. And where under the different themes, there are varying numbers of papers for varying numbers of peer review publications are identified. The subsequent audio podcast in this series will look at the findings and the analysis around the literature. That draws this audio podcast to a close. It's been an audio podcast as part of the Calyces Chronicle series, an audio podcast as part of the MaelZtorm Cortex. This audio podcast as part of a labanostics analysis, and this audio podcast as part of a storm robotics production.